This week, we're taking a peek at what monsters are lurking under your bed, where creepy stop-motion creatures made of clay are working up their latest schemes, all while chomping on your homework and devouring your laundry. Before Pixar was sharing stories about the life of toys, the work of monsters, or all those pesky feelings of existential dread that can creep up on you, ABC had a brilliant short-lived series that beat them to the punch. Grab those dirty gym socks and gear up for karaoke! I'm Kris Carr, and today I want to talk to you about the 1994 cult classic, Bump in the Night. Before we dive in, I want to give a shout out to our super nerd sponsor of the day, Shark Turley. Thanks to heroes like Shark, we get to keep revisiting cartoons of days past. So thank you so much! If you want to pitch in, head on over to our Patreon page and see if a donation tier works for you. Alright, on to Bump in the Night! Bump in the Night was a stop-motion series that aired Saturday mornings on ABC from 1994 to 1996. Typically, each episode was split into two separate stories, and it featured a music video of sorts, recycling footage that pertained to the lesson of that particular jingle. Prior to the show launching, though, little shorts of the Bump in the Night characters, aptly called bumpers, would air between commercials on the network during their animation slot. Now, I remembered Mr. Bumpy and that he lived under the bed and all that, but I've got to be honest with you guys. The bumpers are what I remember Mr. Bumpy from the most. I'll forever have burned into my brain. After these messages, we'll be right back. These bumpers came out a full year before the television series. I was really surprised that by just catching a glimpse of these little shorts, my memory was jogged. I felt like I was eating my Rice Krispies on a Saturday morning all over again. Bumpy and Co. are who gave me the go-ahead to go refill my juice while I was devouring my shows. It was like being reunited with an old friend.
And you gave me the idea!
I did? We'll give it back then.
The actual show Bump in the Night was set in a San Francisco home where a boy had a little green monster who loved to eat socks living under his bed. This monster, Mr. Bumpy, loved filth, adored his boy, and was typically causing chaos around the other citizens of the bedroom. He's a greedy little goblin with the catchphrase, "Gotta have it!" The things he's gotta have? Pre-chewed gum, snotty tissues, and in one episode, particularly crusty socks. Mr. Bumpy, you nasty.
Socks are good for me, Squishment. Rich in fiber and low in calories.
This impulsive behavior is typically what leads Mr. Bumpy to trouble. Like going inside himself to collect all the old gum that he hasn't digested so he can eat it again. Or when he can't stop snacking on filthy socks and needs to be restrained with chains to keep from munching laundry. The creator of the series, Ken Pontac, also served as the art director for the New Adventures of Gumby prior to Bump in the Night. So it stands to reason that Mr. Bumpy's complexion could be a nod to that stretchy guy? What the hell was Gumby? Okay, he's just modeling clay. Okay, I always wondered that. I wonder if Gumby and Bumpy exist in the same world. Like if Bumpy is this sort of anti-Gumby causing chaos in the claymation kingdom. Gotta say, it's sort of bananas that we all remember Gumby. Yet this fun, googly-eyed character didn't make as much of a lasting impression with the general public. And really, Mr. B's design is what got the show made in the first place. When pitching the series, the creators had a model of Bumpy made up with him about to eat a nasty sock. And that got the VP of Children's Programming to jump at the chance to greenlight the series. The Bump in the Night cast was rounded out with other room-dwelling denizens aside from this little wart-covered fella. Bumpy was best friends with Squishington, a timid monster who loved to be tidy and lived in the tank of a toilet. Once ABC invested in the series, the network asked that Squishington be blue as opposed to brown, so as to avoid assuming Squish was a dookie. Still, stands to reason that this gelatinous monster is a hodgepodge of sewage and toilet bowl liquids. Squishington deals a lot with feelings of inferiority, self-esteem, and fear. He also was way before his time, neurotically ensuring his choices were the best choices. Things like not worrying if food was tasty, but rather if it was wholesome and properly sourced so as not to take advantage of farmers. Squish was weighing out Good Place points before we even had the Good Place. The polar opposite of Mr. Bumpy, Squishington likes things to be squeaky clean. The two even go on a germ-killing mission where they travel into a microscope slide a la Mary Poppins. Bumpy is in it for the adventure. Squishington is here to bring the law and order, and the Clorox. Though these two are an odd couple, and even have an episode of trying to live together, they respect each other's way of living.
You're pretty smart for a guy who lives in the bathroom.
Bumpy even cleans for Squish at one point, while Squishington delivers filth to Bumpy's home. Despite getting hit on by a buxom gem when they went on their bacteria tour, Squishington has several stories where he deals with feelings of being unattractive and tired of his appearance. One episode has his face come off on a washcloth that some silverfish start worshipping like it's the Shroud of Turin. It's a weird show. Bump's other friend, Mollycoddle, was a comfort doll who has clearly been put through the ringer comforting the boy's little sister. Molly has had eyes, arms, and legs replaced, all from the care she gave this child. She routinely is used as a Kleenex, or gets tossed aside, or is played with too rough. This is sort of the core of Molly's problems. Couldn't she be treated a little kinder since her job is solely to comfort someone? Much like Woody in Toy Story, Molly constantly talks about how the toys' only purpose is to bring joy and comfort their children. This is mostly a coping mechanism to deal with how raggedy she's become in the line of duty. She often gets down on her hodgepodge body, wondering why she can't be played with gently like the cute dolls of the room. She even has an episode where she replaces parts of her body in an effort to become more powerful. She's tired of being tossed aside and sneezed on and being torn limb from limb day in and day out. She doesn't want to comfort if she's not comforted. She wants to be able to control. The end result is a monstrous, staple remover-headed creature with legs she stole from fellow toy Destructo. Ultimately, seeing her child reject this version of her affirms that Molly is exactly who she needs to be, because she's needed. This really reinforces those ideas of purpose, at least in terms of a toy's role. Molly decides it's better to be needed than to have control and cleanliness. And guys, when Molly is scary, she's probably the scariest character in the show. Don't mess with a lady trained to alleviate the stress of Utes.
Good thing I've been lifting weights. Sometimes it pays to be just a little bit tenacious.
A solid year before Andy's coming was ever uttered by a Toy Story character, Molly and her fellow playpals were playing possum when a child approached. And long before Forky sent Woody and Co. into an existential tailspin, Molly was questioning her purpose. This show was groundbreaking. Other tertiary characters include Destructo, who I mentioned, the boy's toy robot, who acts like he's the sole provider of law and order in the room. Destructo is often gunning for Bumpy since Bumpy doesn't ever abide by the rules. In 2 episodes, we see a softer side of Destructo. One has the robot falling for Mollycoddle and hoping to win her affections. The other has his batteries flipped, and thus his personality is swapped. This, of course, just hammered in the Toy Story comparisons into my viewing, and made me think of when Buzz Lightyear is reset by Lotso and his crew in Toy Story 3. Another antagonistic character throughout the series is the evil closet monster, a mishmash of dirty clothes that terrorizes the creatures and toys of the room. The voice cast is nothing to sneeze at either. As is pretty much always the case on these nostalgia trips, most of the voices were provided by none other than Jim Cummings and Rob Paulsen. Do these dudes get residuals every time you think of a childhood show? They're in everything! But I mean, rightly so. They do amazing work. Jim even got an Emmy nod for his work as the titular character. We also have a few notable guest appearances, like Brad Garrett voicing a baby.
The ankle biters want to see a little patty cake.
Freaked me out a lot. Don't like a deep man voice coming out of a claymation baby. Discovered that's a hard pass for me this week. So, 'tis the season, guys. If you want to scare the bejesus out of me, dress like a baby and talk like a man. Another guest star pop-in I want to talk about is Gilbert Gottfried playing a lusty stink bug. And it's one of my favorite episodes. What I found so great about this one is that the bug, Odie, goes from having feelings for a trash-covered, smelly Molly to the odorous Mr. Bumpy. It's actually really progressive for a 90s show. No one talks about how it's weird that this boy bug likes a boy monster. Everyone just knows that Odie's heart follows his nose. And that's that. And everyone is on board with it.
To smell me is to love me.
In fact, Bumpy's exploration of his feminine side is really well done. Rather than simply using cross-dressing as a gag for laughs, Bumpy regularly states how beautiful and confident he feels when wearing women's clothing. He talks about keeping ladies' footwear for himself. And not once do his friends tell him that that's wrong or weird. Instead, they agree and tell him he looks pretty. That's a really bold thing to do in the 90s. But this show wasn't afraid to put in narrative threads that got you thinking. In the episode Auntie Mata, Bumpy's super spooky monster auntie experiences the news for the first time and finds it to be the most terrifying thing she's ever encountered. I mean, same auntie. She flees from the house as war footage continues to roll on the television. Bump in the Night wanted to talk to kids, not down to them. And I think this was probably one of the first shows that did that I watched. Most of the episodes, though, played on some kind of concept of fear. A particularly fun one, especially if you're in the mood for something a little spooky, is Night of the Living Bread. Not only is this a fun take on Night of the Living Dead, but it also is one of the best examples of why this show was so dang good. Our monsters are scared of another monster, a moldy slice of bread that's out to get them. You have Bumpy constantly breaking the fourth wall. While the show is usually pretty self-referential, this episode in particular has Bumpy fighting directly with the narrator. Plus, this episode is just a testament to how excellent the stop-motion animation of the series is. The character creation and manipulation of these models is outstanding. It still holds up 26 years later. Oh my god, 26 years later. Jeez, I'm old. But really, for being almost 30 years past its debut, you gotta give it to this animation. It would take a 12-hour day to animate under 10 seconds of footage. And even when the network pressured the show to do the same amount of work in significantly less time, or when they had them create an extended Christmas special, none of the animation quality was sacrificed. I mean, you look at spin-offs from Disney movies and straight-to-DVD sequels, and those are always sorely lacking in quality. This team kept everything above par by implementing some tricks here and there. Karaoke Cafe, for example, was a clever device that allowed the show to recycle footage and give us great original songs. I mean, I Was Right and You Were Wrong is a classic! They would also implement mixed media practices, using more traditional 2D animation and live-action footage of the family that owned Bumpy and Co.'s home. This was mostly to give the stop-motion animators a break, but it honestly just enhances the world. I really love that the human family is all shot like Nanny from the Muppet Babies. We just never see their faces. It really works! Doing this wasn't something that was really done before, though, combining all these mediums. And I think we take that for granted because we have shows like Gumball and SpongeBob that do it on the reg. Mr. Bumpy paved the way for that. Animated shows suffer all too often at the hands of network execs and end up having sloppy animation or lackluster storylines, yet Bump in the Night persevered and continued to be a standard of excellence in animation. It truly holds up. I'm definitely adding 'Twas the Bump Before Christmas to my holiday movie rotation. Which, come on, y'all know I've started watching Christmas movies. I'm a monster. I'm the one thing fans of Halloween actually fear. Christmas on November 1st, but I'm scarier because my Hallmark binge list is so long I have to start in September. So I've raved and raved about this series. But if it was so great, why did it get canceled? Disney brought down the hammer, y'all. Once they acquired ABC, they trashed almost all of the Saturday lineup, replacing those shows with the One Saturday Morning block. Well, obviously, One Saturday Morning gave us some fried gold cartoons. Having Bump in the Night be a casualty of it stinks. I know, it was a strategic business move, but I really think Disney missed an opportunity to continue mining from the Bumpy IP. Bumpy had the potential to be so recognizable. He could have been a Mickey or a SpongeBob. Instead, he remains the face of a lost franchise.
So, you're the one who took our car!
What car?
Suspiciously, though, rewatching this, how can you not compare it to the Pixar flicks that Disney produced since then? Monsters, Inc. seems to have taken some cues from this little show, as did Toy Story. Bump in the Night hit all the right notes. It was just a victim of the mouse rebranding its home. The show did see the light of day again when it reran on Toon Disney from 1998 to 2001, but then it faded away. Thankfully, you can watch this kooky cartoon right here on YouTube. A $10 road trip to your childhood is well worth the price. And as you watch it, I honestly challenge you to not make those Pixar comparisons when you check it out. This show, though it didn't have much of an ongoing through line, had so much heart and really allowed its characters to have some big thoughts and feelings. I think more youth programming should do that. Then again, this show may be why millennials are filled with such existential dread. My God. Mollycoddle is me and I am Mollycoddle! I really think this off-the-wall show ushered in unorthodox characters and storytelling approaches that we've come to expect from big names like Pixar. And it's high time it gets the praise it deserves.
Now this is my kind of show!
Of course, these were just my thoughts when I rewatched this series. What I want to know is, what do you think of Bump in the Night? Do you think Disney borrowed from it? And do you think they blew it by giving it the axe? Hit me with your hot takes in the comments below. Be sure you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss next week's episode where I'll be rediscovering Courage the Cowardly Dog. If you liked this video, give us a thumbs up and be sure to check out our other cartoon videos. Thank you once again to all of our donors on Patreon, especially Shark Turley, and thank you for watching. Until the next detour, I'll see you, Space Cowboy.